Welcome back to While the Leaves Wither Away. We are up to chapter 14, and this is episode 4. Last time, uh, go and watch the previous video. So much happened in only 3 chapters, and I have a feeling it's about to get even crazier. So, immediately before this, we've built ourselves a raft. Hence why the chapter 14 is called Rafting Down Yonder. And the summary is, with the raft complete, the trio decide to take it out for a spin. Very excited to see where they end up. Okay, without further ado, let's begin the reading. You're watching the BBQ News at 1900. The SPPD has declared that the investigation on the Hazeltine house fire has been closed. St. Petersburg's chief of police announced that all the residents of the house have been pronounced dead earlier this morning. It is a terrible tragedy, nothing short of that. I'm sure nobody would have expected such a disaster to occur in this small town. Really, I'm worried about how the citizens can move on from this, frightened for the future, but we at the SPPD will ensure that we will keep them all safe. Our hearts go out to Giovanni Hazeltine, and only wish for his soul to rest in peace, alongside his wife Elizabeth and son Wyatt. At the very name, Buck's eyes snapped open, the boy catching his breath that so desperately tried running away. Kazel, he hissed, chest heaving as he hunched forward on the couch, clutching the thin blanket draped over him to his chest. His head pounded like mad, a ringing, bouncing in his ears that refused to go away, no matter how hard he smacked himself. Gummy was wide awake already, his tail swishing from left to right against the floorboards, staring right up at the frazzled boy. Once he had a small sense of consciousness again, he just groaned at the sight. Piss off, he murmured, his head thrown onto the pillow once more, back turned to him. The cat wasn't going to let him off just yet, though. Determinedly, he hopped onto the sofa to join him, crawling into his arms. Mrah! I said, piss off, you idiot! Gummy just licked his face in response. He couldn't stay mad at that, no matter how hard he tried to suppress his choked-up laugh. Damn you. He'd been waiting for their arrival all morning, mindlessly swinging on the hammock just outside the base, the movement a soothing motion for Gummy, who was as grumpy as ever. Still, even in his sour mood, he refused to leave Buck's side, annoyingly mewing and clinging to his arm. Easy, easy. You're coming too, dipshit, he groaned, but the way Gummy couldn't possibly decipher a word he was saying, he stayed glued to his shirt anyway. It wasn't until after lunchtime that the twins finally showed up, Buck tossing his half-eaten apple to the ground and clasping his hands together before making his way to the raft. Y'all ready for some rafting? Buck grinned, already beginning to undo the rope tied to a post by the riverside, setting the boat loose. Quick question, how deep's the river? Nate frowned, taking a glance at the moderately fast rapids, already feeling the goosebumps forming. A couple of fish occasionally splashed out of the water, but none of them showed a clear indicator of how shallow it truly was. It ain't that bad. Buck tried his best to sound convincing. I've been there for. Think it reaches to my shoulders. Nate barely reached just over Buck's shoulders, and he only stiffened more at that fact. Just hold on to the mast and you'll be fine. With some force, Noel took him by the wrists and dragged him closer to the raft, Nate's body leaning further back in refusal with every step they took. She grabbed the oar, surprised by the lightness, and hopped onto the small boat, her arms raised as she adjusted to the wobbly surface. Just gotta steer at the sides, right? Darn tootin', and I've got the map, so y'all better listen to me. Buck was about to step on as well, but despite his persistence on getting a move on, he couldn't ignore the queasiness so blatantly plastered on Nate's face. You don't have to come, he offered. I don't think we'll be gone that long. When we get there, we're only going to check out the UFO for like 10 minutes or something. But Nate shook his head, standing his ground. No, it's okay, he mumbled. His nose pointed to the ground so his fringe could cover the clear embarrassment. I can do it. Just give me a minute. To his own astonishment, Buck actually managed to brush past his impatience. He gave Nate all the time he needed. And it didn't stop there. Once he helped him bring his quivering legs onto the raft, Buck ensured their arms were securely linked before setting off, making Nate hold onto the mast with his other hand the entire time. Alright, let's set sail. It took way longer than it should have for Nate to open his eyes again. Check it out, Dogface. Pretty cool, huh? Buck's grin was the first thing he was greeted with once the world came into view again. The brunette remaining silent during the slow, steady trip. He only turned around to glance at Noelle, who freed one hand from the oar to return a thumbs up. He couldn't lie, it wasn't completely horrible. The surrounding nature closed in by the river was actually quite pleasant, to his surprise. He recognized the suspension bridge they passed under, the red coat of paint being the one he swore he walked past daily now. Ye be turning right at the upcoming fork? Buck made his command in a stupid pirate accent. Ye be turning right at the upcoming fork. That's more like it, I think. I have a Buck voice and I have a pirate voice. Kind of hard to make the voice of Buck doing a pirate voice. One of his arms staying locked onto Nate's while the other stared at his mouth. Light-heartedly, Nate rolled his eyes. Gummy can be a parrot then. I mean, darn tootin' me hearty. He be me finest scallywag, or whatever. Flashing a toothy grin, his free hand reaching up to give the cat a gentle scratch on the head. Once at the fork, Noelle subtly grumbled at the steering. On this flimsy thing, one wrong move and they'd most likely crash. Jagged rocks poked out from below the surface, the girl working swiftly to dodge them all. In the raft minigame in Yoko, which you've got to smash a bunch of logs and you've got to avoid a bunch of rocks. And if you crash, then you just crash. You're dead. Well, not quite dead. That would be kind of dark for a game that's rated like 7. But realistically speaking, they should be dead. Well, they would just become yokai, I guess. So I guess that's fine. Anyway. Yeesh, you sure you haven't done this before? I have in a game, she shrugged. Obviously, it's more difficult here, though. She groaned, finally allowing herself a minute to relax once they were safely past the fall. She didn't play Yokai Watch 3, did she? The other way. Nate began to speculate, visualizing East Pine's layout in his head. Is that the old mansion? Buck confirmed. That river leads to the ocean. This one leads to Grumbler's Grotto, where the UFO crashed. And we don't want to get lost at sea or be trespassing on illegal grounds, now do we? Nate's returning smile was quite sheepish. Guess not. Despite the speed, the journey was actually pretty soothing. It didn't take much time until Nate's body got used to the rocking, no longer feeling like he was going to throw up overboard. Maybe. Hopefully. Still, his grip on the mast was tighter than ever, his arms staying linked with Buck's the entire time. Buck didn't seem to mind, though. You're quivering like a mouse with a cat. Kinda. He huffed. I didn't take swimming lessons overnight, that's why. It wasn't that he couldn't swim. It wasn't something he did often. The water's either full of chlorine or salt. Trying to put socks back on right after is an absolute nightmare. And the simple thought of being perceived in any kind of swimsuit made him want to shrivel up and die. Best stay glued to the mast, then, was Buck's declaration, tightening his grip on Nate's arm just a little. Me, I guess. Soon, the density of the trees died out entirely, the forest finally reaching its end, and thus the prairie started. The river led them right to a cave's entrance, Buck identifying it instantly as he referred to in his memory. This should be it, Grumbler's Grotto, he muttered in assumption, letting his map roll out to take a better look, squinting through the darkness. Damn it! Too dark. Dark? Hang on. Nate was breathless as he wobbled off the raft, mostly leaning onto Noelle for support. Once he knew for certain that he wasn't going to throw up, he crouched down beside the other boy. holding out his wrist. From there, the watch formed a tiny flame over its surface, casting a dull light that just barely reached the map. Better? Buck sucked in his teeth, clearing his throat. Yeah, it's better, he hollowly mumbled, returning to the paper once more. The river took a left by those trees, and there was the fork right after. Yep, sit. Grumbler's Grotto. But the UFO's outside, stating the obvious. Noel sighed and glanced back to the cave's entrance. No way outside from the river, it seemed, and with the current's direction surely aiming to battle them, there was no use turning back. The cave it is, then. She said that with more confidence than was probably warranted, the flame from Nick's watch hardly illuminating the area at all. They couldn't fully tell if they were alone or not. Water dripping from a rocky ceiling, making uncomfortable, reticent splashes as they hit the floor, and a strange sound came from above. Was that a bat? Relax, they ain't gonna hurt you. Buck rolled his eyes, rolling up the map and stuffing it back into his pocket, tying the raft's rope around a nearby rock. Might have diseases, though. Diseases? Blah. Noel's repulsion continued, the girl sticking her tongue out at the possibility of encountering illness-infested pests. Let's just find a way out of here, she huffed, taking Nate's arm to use the watch as her own personal torch, dragging him through the grotto against his will. Hey. Shh. You're all we have for light right now. She got groaned at for that, which only encouraged her to push him further. Go, my flashlight! Luckily for them, the designated path couldn't be clearer, what with the arrays of unlit lamps and fences blocking off incomprehensible drops of doom. On most occasions, Grumbler's Grotto would have hundreds of visitors a day, the expansive cave system and the scenery on the outside attracting many explorers and tourists. That was like an interesting detail, because in the game you don't really see anyone there other than yokai. Now, with the whole UFO fiasco that crashed barely a couple miles away, it had been closed for nearly a month, shut off by the authorities. For how insignificant St. Petersburg was, relying on the cave for money, many wouldn't be surprised if the local economy would go bust at this rate. And they were serious about shutting it down as well. At the end of the path, a large boulder was lodged into the exit, cracks of sun barely seeping through the edges. Couldn't it just use some tape or a sign or something? Nora was the first to complain. She blinked as Buck rubbed his hands together. Whoa, what are you doing? I'm getting us out of here, he said. He said it as if it should have been obvious, his palms pressed up against the hard surface. Gummy had already had enough before he'd even started, jumping off his shoulder to sit by Nate's shoes instead. Come on, he muttered, shifting to push with his elbow as well, giving the twins a quick glare. What are you standing there for? Help me out! Nate only saw red, though, the sharp edges of the rock spiking up his worry. But wait. Ah! As Nate as quickly predicted, the pressure Buck was applying to the immovable rock caused his hand to slip up, the rough exterior slitting his palm. Fuck! He seethed, staring down at the fresh cut, blood quickly drooling out. Buck! First to respond, Nate jumped forward to take his wrist, inspecting the wound with wide eyes. You okay? Yeah, all good, he sighed. It's nothing. Stupidly, he hastily rubbed his palm against his overalls, hoping it stopped the blood. Hey, no! Don't do that, idiot! He'll get infected! They grabbed his wrist once more, using his hand to find a small roll of gauze he kept in his pocket. Noel crossed her arms. Well, pushing clearly doesn't work. Could you just find another... Could you just find another exit, please? Nate bit back with a subtle frown. I'll deal with Buck. Fine, she clicked her tongue. Suit yourself. I can do this myself, you know. Shut. Buck had no choice but to let him get to work, forced to sit on the floor because Nate was worried he'd start getting lightheaded. He'd suffered worse injuries in the past. He was perfectly capable of dealing with them himself. Yet Nate was seemingly persistent on doing it for him. He carried bandages with you everywhere. For emergencies, Nate explained, his gaze never wandering off from Buck's injury, gently dabbing a bit of the gauze onto his palm to clean the blood, going slowly to reduce the sting. My dad told me to. And even if you don't carry it everywhere, I mean, going on an expedition like this and not carrying, a little first aid kit, probably not a good idea. Once the bleeding had calmed down, he rolled out more of the gauze and began wrapping it round Buck's hand, applying a gentle pressure to ensure it wouldn't come loose. Let me know if it's too tight, okay? Buck just silently nodded. Usually, turning to his own injuries felt like hell, the nipping pain almost unbearable at times from the way he did it so carelessly. But here, he hardly even grumbled or winced. Nate's insistence on never hurting him drove him insane sometimes. The meticulous care was a nice change for once. There, Nate smiled at it as he finished up with the bandage, getting Buck to shake his hand around to test its security. Is that better? It works. Buck feigned indifference. Still, the smallest mark of a smile showed itself. A genuine one. Thanks, Nate. Truthfully, he was a little itchy, but he tried to push past that for now. Rawr. He also kept it hidden away so Gummy wouldn't try and bite it off. Buck! Noelle called for him once she saw him return. Oh, did you find an exit? Nate asked. Nope, but I did remember a little weapon Buck has that might help. She extended her arm out, the redhead staring up at her in confusion for a solid second, the realization soon hitting him. Yeah, I mean, he took out the blaster, disabling the safety lock and skeptically handing it over to her. Yep, stand back. They did as they were told, and Noelle spent a minute looking at the dial. 1 was the weakest, 9 was the strongest. She settled for a steady 4 before pulling the trigger. Wah! A loud bang followed. Buck surprised but didn't know with its high-pitched screech. Hey, watch it! Noelle, what the heck? Shut it! It worked! With the boulder blown apart, the sun finally managed to hit them directly, Noelle coughing at the faint dust cloud the rubble left behind. Easy! Finally, daylight. Noelle was the first to step out and embrace the freedom, only to stop dead in her tracks. Holy shit! Nate peeked his head up, leaving the cave as well. What? Look, the UFO! It's right here! She exclaimed, rushing over to the cliff's edge to get a better look, making sure she wouldn't fall down alongside the loose stones. Below them, situated in the prairie, there it was. Closest they'd ever been to the vessel, the whole thing surrounded by police cars. Their sizes were embarrassing compared to it. Okay, this is a bit more realistic because when you find the UFO in Yokai Watch 3, it's seemingly no one has managed to track it down. There's no police cars anyway. They're not doing anything. It's mainly regarded as more of like a rumor than anything. And also, speaking of law enforcement, the only ones who were going after the UFO in Yokai Watch 3 really were Blunder and Folly, who were two X-Files parodies. So I wonder if they're going to possibly show up. Maybe. Probably not. Huh. Would you look at that? Buck murmured, still grasping his injured hand, igniting Nate's attention. Hey, is it too tight? Still hurting? Idiot, it's fine, he groaned, giving a subtle glare that he didn't mean all too much. He brushed it off, literally, with the way he rubbed the bandage against his overalls as if that had cured the stinging, and trudged closer to Noelle to get a better look of the UFO. She grinned, playfully nudging his elbow. Want to get abducted by aliens? Shut up, there ain't no aliens, and we sure as hell ain't going inside it. Shh, Nate instructed. Confused, the other two shared a glance. Noelle was the first to utter. What? Silent, Nate picked up a familiar sound of a gentle wind, scanning the area down below in an attempt to associate it with anything peculiar. Then he spotted them. Police cars. It was normal for them to be patrolling the UFO, but why are the sirens on? Noelle asked, staring at the cars that zoomed down the road all of a sudden, leaving clouds of dust in their wake. Some still remained stationary, keeping an eye on the vessel, though many were on the move. But predicted their future trail, and it led him to a brewing veil of smoke. Murder! With that in view, they ran. That's Dukesville? Noelle cried out during the descent, sprinting down the slim path that hugged the cliff, following closely behind Buck and in front of Nate as soon as they made it to the grassland. It's the only big town here other than St. Petersburg. Course it is! Buck could barely be heard over the harsh air, panting for breath, yet continued to run away, the cat in his arms serving as extra baggage for his already tired body. Can't be a forest fire. Y'all see any trays around here? She groaned at that. Never said it was. And in a frazzled state, she turned back to her brother, watching him slowly catch up. Nate, come on! Sorry. His hand got yanked by her arm once he was close enough, giving it a tight squeeze as they continued running. October was just over the horizon, the temperatures dropping even in the hottest areas. Chances of a wildfire happening was slim to none. That was it. This wasn't natural, just like the fire at the church and just like the fire at the Hazeltine house. It all led back to him. With that in mind, Noel's breath hitched. What if... Whoosh! With that, they drew to an abrupt halt. Buck's arms spread out to ensure neither twins planned to get any closer. So we're seeing some connections here. And Noelle, I think, has just clocked herself. Okay. Smoke soon consumed the atmosphere, the three of them all holding their breaths in their shirts. Their blood grew cold at the sight. Fire engulfed the town, swallowing it whole, the rustic buildings made of wood never standing a chance. And as the sirens' wails grew louder, they found themselves arriving too late. It was a massacre, an abrupt torture with no way out, the civilians perishing in its wake. The children took shelter behind a boulder, nor breaking their mutual, terrified silence. It's okay. The police are coming, she reassured the boys, vainly focused on Nate with their attempts to calm his racing heart. Shh, they'll be here in no time, won't they? Then they can finally arrest that son of a... The pain grunts erupted from the town, bangs from bullets instinctively causing the trio to duck. It covered their ears for a long while, the gruesome sounds of fighting still managing to seep through, till the battle was dead. With the quiet air hanging above them, Noelle had to take a peek, lifting her head over the boulder's surface. And there he was. The strength was remarkable, even to her, yet that only made it all the more horrifying. His feelings were uncertain, face blank apart from the subtle glare, the yokai showing no remorse in holding the officer by the throat. Said officer sputtered, his ghostly eyes flickering to the spying girl, right before they focused on nothing at all, his body given up. That was the only hint Giovanni needed, dropping the corpse to the ground as the boulder intrigued him. Shit, Noelle hissed, slumping back to her hiding spot, though she already knew it was too late. Did he see you? She never responded. Instead, her palm went cold, forging a tall icicle. Without wasting any more time, she jumped back out. The icy javelin went flying, certainly taking Giovanni by surprise. Though, with a swift head flick, it hardly managed to shave off a couple of hair strands. He was still faster. To him, agreed by the silent amusement tugging his lopsided lips up, he had the upper hand. Get out of here! She yelled to the boys, taking a single look back to find her brother scrambling to his feet. Nate, go! Noelle! He barely managed to call out her name before Buck dragged him away, the two seeking refuge behind a charred wheelbarrow. Nate remained stubborn, straining himself in the vain attempt to escape Buck's grasp. No, let me go with her! Idiot, calm down, calm down! But Buck refused to let him, keeping a firm grip on his shoulders, groaning as the pain in his injured hand spiked up again. She's a yokai, ain't she? She'll be fine. Still, Nate wasn't convinced, watching with fast, unsteady breaths as the fight unfolded. Your aim's getting better, Giovanni teased, pinching the air with his fingers. But still, it could use a little work. You'll be saying that once I get close enough to jam one in your skull, Noelle hissed back, already forming another icicle under her fingertips. Slowly, she circled the clearing in the opposite direction as him, backed up against the burning buildings. What are you even doing? She scoffed. What, you think it'll be cooler if you start killing humans? I'm building. As expected, she looked more confused and intrigued, and so he continued. What good is a human, really? The gods abandoned them long ago, as they are simply unable to excel. Yokai are what they really want. Cut the bullshit. Silenzio! He glared. I'm rehoming them. They'd be little lost lambs without me. And how can a lamb survive in the wild? They need A shepherd. Noel's heart stopped for a moment once he broke from his steady pacing, staring in naive terror as he approached one of the many bodies scattered across the dirt streets. From it, a yokai was born. Frightened, alone, starved of its memory, Giovanni loomed over the poor thing. Get up, he growled. You're confused, are you not? Then I, the Ghoul Father, shall guide you. You're brainwashing them? Will immediately assume the worst, given his already apparent record of malicious intent. She wasted no more time, firing short icicles in quick succession, all failures with his swift reaction time. Abandoning the yokai, he focused on destruction, rather than building. Noel hardly had any time to process him charging forward, just about bouncing back before he could grab her by the neck. A few more hasty, frantic icicles were shot from her palms, mindlessly flailing and therefore impaling the building's remains instead, melting instantly against the impenetrable fire. Giovanni was cunning, however, and certainly stood more calculated than the panic state the girl was enduring. He'd already predicted all the attacks, even when they were seemingly fickle. It was easy, really. She tried to strike him every time she found an opening to breathe. So he chose to silence that. Extending a tall leg, his boot shoved into her stomach, knocking the wind out of her and sending her to the sand. You know what? Nate was forced back, Buck shaking his hand as he covered his mouth. Shit, she cursed under her breath. Stop before she could form another icicle. Her throat finally snatched as she was lifted into the air. He didn't give himself any chances to think. Nate broke past Buck's protests, throwing himself onto his feet and rushing over, gripping the watch on his wrist. Leave her alone! From there, the flames were cast as he pointed his watch, injected directly into Giovanni's suit and setting him alight. He had no choice but to drop her. Noelle! Nate softened and fall, holding her up from under her arms and letting her lean on him while she coughed and sputtered. It's okay. I gotcha. She couldn't formulate any words just yet, eyes wide with terror. It didn't go ignored, how he winced at her neck, and she'd only assumed it had definitely left a mark. The burning sight in her peripheral vision finally blurred into focus. And to their dismay, there was a sly smile that greeted them. I must say, your benevolence is admirable, he stated, a lack of warmth in his tone, though it could also count as stupidity. Despite the flames that engulfed him, adding to the ashes he'd already left in his wake, his skin never broke, never charred. It looked painless. A blurry memory returned to Nate of how Giovanni acted back at the church, how it was the fire that allowed his evolution. It ignited his purpose. It couldn't damage him, only aid him, help him build power. It was that realization that urged Nate to ensure her escape, now or never. All he needed was for her to run, shuffling back to prompt her. As if Giovanni would let them. He pounced as soon as the fire died out, dodging a near icicle to the working eye, grabbing the projectile and forcing it to a halt. Both children, unfortunately, sat paralyzed in shock, and it was Nate who received the blow. Nate! His left eye only just missed the slice, his cheek suffering instead. Stuck for 1 second and falling in an axe, Nate's breath rapidly accelerated, a sharp stinging, petrifying his ability to think, his head hesitantly turning to search for Noelle, as he felt something trickle down the side of his face. Noelle had other plans, though, her passion for vengeance burning brighter than the inferno that Giovanni had already faced in the past. She sprung to her feet, yelling nonsensically at the man, trying and failing to hit him with the barrage. Noelle, stop! Nick could barely whisper the words out, and before long he felt something forcefully grabbing by his shoulders, accepting his fate. Nate, shit, you're okay, right? Buck was yelling louder than he probably should have been, most of his panicking sentences drained out of Nate's focus. He assumed one thing, though. The Buck was begging for a verbal responsiveness to chaos, but it was no use. Once he felt the Buck's hand on his cheek, wiping away the blood with his shaking thumb, he broke. Nate! His mouth snapped shut, heart sinking at the small tears in his eyes, dumbly staring for longer than he should have. It was unclear to him what he was supposed to do at that moment, absentmindedly rubbing his cheek as if that were enough to calm him down. It wasn't. He knew it wasn't, and his heart pleaded for him to do more. Come here! Even if his mind objected to it, he'd never forgive himself, and he pulled him into his arms with a gentle, uneasy hug. It did work for a bit, Nate's cries stopping and replaced with surprise, so it was only a temporary band-aid. His breath hitched, shaking arms, returning the favour by encircling Buck's wrist, only realizing now how much he'd been craving this. He'd had an itch that was impossible to scratch away for a while now, for as long as he could remember, what with the little turmoil that he enjoyed for the past few weeks, his brain trying its hardest to block it out. He never wanted this memory to fade, though. Not now, not ever. The thought terrified him, translated into more soft sobs that soaked into Buck's shoulder. "You're okay, Dogface," Buck murmured into his hair, only able to know if he was doing a good job of comforting him or not through hopes and prayers. Despite it all, the closeness was soothing. Maybe it was selfish of him to relish in this touch. He knew damn well he should have pushed Nate away, leaving him to fend for himself just like the rest of them. Those ideals rarely raised a fist to him anymore, though. They'd be best assumed dead, logically, even with the supposed resurrection coming back to haunt him from time to time. Beginning to tire, Noelle clutched onto a large spear of ice, raising it to the seemingly impenetrable yokai as she backed away. "Piece of shit," she muttered, a voice calling out to prevent her from continuing. Unlike her, naturally being the tougher of the two, his looming figure casting a shadow over her entire being, Giovanni still had quite a bit of fight left in him. And from the cracks in the ruins, the new lost souls spectating the battle, he raised his arms in triumph as if he'd already won. "This here, this passionate fighting spirit, this is what the gods dream of watching, is it not? Now choose, shall you join me in achieving these heights, pleasing the Almighty, or shall you perish, dying as a nobody?" Buck's teeth gritted against each other. "Noelle, get back," he ordered. One of his hands let go of Nate, so he ensured his hold with the other was twice as strong before reaching into his pocket. There wasn't much remorse in his eyes as he raised the blaster, turning the dial and pointing directly to Giovanni. However, the man could only scoff. "Get away from us, you hear me?" It was an empty threat, and they both knew it. Even so, it wasn't the words that Giovanni focused on, more so the trembling boy he held in his embrace. "You're treading along the wrong path." Oh yeah?" Buck disabled the safety lock. "Watch me." The stammer in his voice gave it all away. Giovanni able to read him like an open book. He always has. "You won't do it." "Shut your trap!" he hissed, but it was no use. Giovanni could see his true feelings right through the eyes, the sheer terror enough to tell him exactly what he needed. How many times must he have seen them? Buck's stance wavered, the gun slowly lowering in his self-made defeat, but Noelle snatched it right before he could fully surrender. "Eat shit!" she cried out, taking a single second to steady her aim before firing a shot straight to the jugular. A thud followed, her heaving breaking through the deafening silence, limply holding the gun from shock. The man growled, startlingly so, and retreated in a cloud of ash before certain doom could await him. Noelle took a second to find the words she wanted to say, unsure of what to make of it all. "Is he dead?" Glancing down, her fears were only proved. Why was the dial at 1? Yeah. Let's hope. Come on, we gotta get Nate out of here. Buck stole the yokai blaster back, keeping an arm around Nate's waist to hastily escort him back to the grotto. "Gummy!" With a quick whistle, he summoned the frazzled cat. He refused to leave right away. "If you shot while the dial's at 1, it ain't gonna do much. Maybe knock you out for a bit." Now I decided to stay quiet, scooping Gummy up and carrying him until his nerves calmed down. She could figure it out later. For now, Nate needed a plaster. They never said a word to each other on the way back. Given the cave's size, they did find another exit eventually, blasted with another river flowing nearby, leading right back to St. Petersburg. Buck offered to take over the steering without hesitation, the twins both staying stuck to the mast, their heads hung low. Once they all returned safely to solid ground, the familiar grasp by the secret base feeling far more secure than the dry blaze they faced in the prairie, Buck returned the raft to its post. He was more satisfied to forget about it for a while. Maybe he'd be better off if he left it in that cave. Gummy stayed curled up in his arms, the boy holding him as if he were a newborn baby, ensuring his own protection. He turned to the others, giving Noelle a subtle nod and an even quieter order. Get him home safe, alright? As if she'd let her guard down. I know, it's fine. Giovanni doesn't know where we are, does he? You're right. It was true. Even if he caught up to them soon, Nate and Noel would have arrived back home and remained well hidden by the time he got back to town. Wherever they lived. So long as they made no stupid decisions, they were safe. Buck was another story, though, and Nate pointed it out. Buck, what about Nate? Nate! He turned him down, shaking his head and grabbing his shoulder in an empty reassurance. It's alright, idiot. He tried his best to smile. You're worried about the wrong thing right now. I got this, don't I? You got the Yokai Blaster interview. Ain't we got the carnival tomorrow? No way he'll get us there. Nate still wasn't entirely convinced. Even with his anxiety, Noel still dragged him away, escorting out the woods. Gotta get you a plaster, was her reasoning. Nate's gaze stayed fixed behind him, locked onto Buck's idle figure, until there were too many trees to see him clearly anymore. Left on his lonesome, he heard Gummy's raspy meow against his shoulder, readjusting his grip on the cat. Hey, Gummy, be good while I'm gone tomorrow, okay? He asked, pressing a kiss to the soft fur on top of his head. If you don't tear the base down, you get extra strawberries when I'm back. How's that sound, huh? Even when that was tempting, the feline had far bigger concerns at that moment, hissing at the surrounding vegetation. Buck felt his skin crawl, so the feeling was mutual. He'd never truly know when he'd strike next. Yeah, as I said, complete chaos, and I'm actually really sad because Jukesville is one of my favourite locations in Yokai Watch, and they never get to visit it. It's just completely burned to the ground. All the souls that live there, I guess they had a choice of either moving on, passing away, or becoming yokai and joining the Ghoul Father's army. And yeah, this is also the reveal that Giovanni Hazeltine is the Ghoul Father, who is the main villain of Yokai Watch 3. And now we reach chapter 15, which I've been told is a good stopping point. So, because I don't have too much time to record today, I might end it at the end of this chapter for today. So we have chapter 15, Killed My Lane. For a nice change, the trio go to St. Peanut's Big's carnival, far away from the forest. Giovanni can't get them that way, right? Right? Well, I mean, he burned down a whole town, so I'm not going to put anything past him. He can't find us here, you know. For now. No, never. I promise. Up and awake far later than they should be. Neither of them found it in them to sleep yet. It wasn't easy, with reminders everywhere, the fire being all the news ever talked about earlier that evening. They'd already connected it as well, the link between Jukesville and the church, given the short time between them and the proximity. It's probably the most excitement this town's ever had since Hazeltine House. Though nobody knows the full truth. Nobody except them, of course, who now wallowed in despair and shivered under the blankets. How's your cheek? Oh, Nate barely got a word in before Noah took his chin by force, scoffing at the sight. I said not to scratch it, didn't I? Stupid. She grumbled, only able to cool the scar with her eyes for a short second before he had enough. Leave it. You leave it. With a lazy response, he just flopped backwards onto the bed, rolling over to face the wall and avoid her worrying face. She was going to worry anyway. How could she not? Hey, she whispered, managing a few taps on the shoulder until he groaned again. You know what will happen again, right? That's the strength, you know, getting up close and personal. You know what happened to me as well. She could already see the plan in her head. In theory, it was easy. Prioritize ranged attacks, which should be simple given her icicles. Not to mention the yokai blaster. There's no big fists to a gunfight, right? He's at a disadvantage. But look at him, he shuddered. A whole town is dead. None are brainwashed, too. She bit her lip, nostrils flaring and leg bounced against the floor. Bastard. It was a struggle to find hope in that moment, as much as Noel didn't want to admit it. If you could take down an entire town, who's to say you couldn't do the same to St. Peanutsburg? Maybe, even the world. And for what? Just to expand his cult? We'll see what happens tomorrow. she decided to say. He won't look for us at the fair. It's too crowded. Are we safe? And when we get home, we can do whatever you want. Giving him a little nudge again, she cracked a small smile. We can watch Howl's Moving Castle again. Or we can make Giovanni in The Sims and drown him in a pool or something. Got him to laugh, at least a little. Stop it. What? It's a good idea, isn't it? Slowly, she lowered herself to lay down as well, right by his side. That was all it took for him to turn back around. I'm staying here tonight, by the way. I'm staying here tonight, by the way. A weight had been lifted, and anxiety about what the night could bring. But with her here, it'd be easier. Promise? She nodded right away. I promise! And she found his hand to take it in her own, the intertwined fingers barely poking out from under the duvet. Despite it all, despite the fear, Noelle couldn't help but giggle. Nate blinked, looking clueless. What? Out of all the names, she sighed, a few snorts escaping from her nose. The Ghoul Father? Really? Truthfully, Nate had been holding in his own giggling for that ever since they escaped. It's like that one really famous movie. I know! Doesn't make it any less stupid. She needed a solid object to muffle her laughs, leaning forward so she could use his pajama top for just that. I do not care for the Ghoul Father. He gently patted her back when she started hiccuping, smiling all the way. More like the grandfather. Or the drool father. She only laughed more. They'd be at it all night at this rate, unable to get a lick of sleep due to their own immaturity. At least they were smiling, though. Maybe that alone made it all worth it. Stick together, okay? And please go easy on the scary ride. I don't want you getting sick. We know, calling out in unison. Both twins scurried to tie their laces, fighting the urge to give their mother's worry a roll of the eyes. Like always, Noelle finished first, already booking it for the door. Come on, don't want to be late for your Prince Charming. What? Nate could already feel his face brightening, as silly as it was. And he only wanted to punch himself more for knowing right away who he was referring to. No, it's not like that. Swinging the door open, speak of the devil. Buck! They squeaked. They agreed to meet at the harbour, didn't they? Yeah, here he was, his finger raised as if he was just about to ring the doorbell. But surprisingly, Nate was punctual enough to prove that unnecessary. Oh, holy shit, Nate! He finally muttered after a brief silence, holding a single muddy boot into the hallway to lean forward, holding his shoulders with a protective grip. Youch! That ain't still a hurtin', is it? Huh? Oh, you mean... Nate chapped his own cheek, the scar now reduced to gentle nipping rather than harsh stinging, but he started to chuckle at his paranoia. It's fine. It'll heal, he reassured him, gently taking both of Buck's wrists. I'm okay. Good. I ain't worrying, just making sure. Buck turned rather sheepish and fast, and all it took was one glance at the suspicious Noelle to flick back on his stoic persona. Better get going or we'll miss the boat. They were lucky to even get on it at all. Being the last day of the year that the carnival was still up and running, the workers must have had at least a full stadium worth of people clambering to get in the entire day. The evening saw its peak, with parents finished with work and the marketplace having closed about an hour ago. They all had to ensure that neither Nate nor Buck got crushed to death. The actual boat wasn't that bad, though. There was a limit to the amount of passengers allowed on board, of course, most likely to avoid a lawsuit in case anyone got pushed off. And as soon as their tickets were validated, Buck scrambled up to the top deck, the fever of the fair situated on the island up north, making its mark as an impeccable spectacle. This is way better than the raft, huh? Nate chimed in, joining Buck's wonder, standing by his side against the railing. Doesn't feel like it's gonna fall to bits. Nah. The raft's perfect. We made it to the grotto, didn't we? He snickered in return, glancing down to find Nate's sheepish face. You sure you're gonna handle some choppy seas? You look just about ready to puke on the river. Hey, I'll be fine. Shut up. You also said that at Springdale Fair last year. Sneaking up from behind, Noelle butted her head in to give her brother a snarky grin. What happened again? Oh, right, you went on a roller coaster right after eating. And then... Shh! Nate's face nearly turned as red as his flannel. His arms crossed and rested on the railing as he hid his head in them. Buck could already assume where this was going. Seriously? That's so stupid. I was 12. As if 1 year makes much of a difference. Amidst the banter, the boat's horn sounded its bellowing call, and the short voyage began. Mere minutes passed, and they'd already arrived. The boring old St. Peanutsburg had nothing on this. The children all had to take a moment to admire the spectacle, or the bright lights and sounds which would usually sound like a hellish nightmare. Now all that could be expressed was joy. Ooh, should we try the dodgems here? Noah suggested, skipping forward to see if she could spot the ride in question. I nearly knocked Nate out of his cart one time in Springdale. You okay, Buck? Nate's attention shifted elsewhere, frowning a bit at the taller boys as if to be petrified with shock? Fear? Maybe a mix of both. He quickly snapped out of it, though, tilting his head to whisper into Nate's ear. Never been before. You haven't? He watched the sheepish shake of the head Buck gave him, but he didn't dare tease him. That's okay, he whispered back. You can just have a look around and see if there's anything you like. After what felt like an eternity, he finally noticed Noel, whose sour expression got thrown away. Well, if he's never been to the fair before, then yeah, show him around. I'm good by myself for a bit. Oh, you sure? Nate didn't seem all that convinced. I'm sure, she began humming in thought, taking a quick look at the surroundings to give ideas. How about the big wheel? Maybe you can see the UFO from the top, she grinned, soon skipping away. She's been in that Ferris wheel over there. Think so. It's not really a fun ride, it's more sightseeing than anything. He pinched his own skin, immediately realized he was probably making it sound boring for Buck. But, it's like she said, we might see the UFO if we're so high up. Yeah, I really think so. Still skeptical, Buck took another glance at the Ferris wheel, squinting his eyes. He could hardly even see the people sitting in the top carriages, looking like little specks in the sky. Another idea hit Nate, switching on the light bulb. Let's give it a go, okay? There's a first time for everything. Buck couldn't deny that reasoning, or that face. So, with an exaggerated huff, he reluctantly agreed, joining Nate in the overflowing line right outside the wheel. Actually, yeah, I've never been in a Ferris wheel myself, because, I mean, every time there is one around, yeah, the lines are always, like, so long. It didn't go unseen from Noelle. She was watching from afar, stuck in a little long line, this time for the dodgems. And as much as that familiar jealousy wanted to rise to the surface once more, she couldn't deny another fact, and it battled those feelings. It was obvious just from looking, especially to her, and Nate himself still seemed to deny it. As for Buck, she didn't have a clue in the world what he was thinking. It's safe, ain't it? As long as you don't start jumping about like an idiot, Nate joked, taking a peek outside the carriage's window once the ride started moving again. He took the seats opposite Buck, who'd been tightly gripping the railings on the sides to the point his knuckles were beginning to turn white. Nate just laughed, speaking up again for confirmation. Are you scared of heights? Ain't scared of a damn thing, Buck insisted, unable to even believe himself. Sure, he climbed up his fair share of trees, claimed many injuries and close calls when it came to broken bones, but none of them were as high as this, not even close. Okay, hang on, I'm coming. Nate waited until the wheel stopped again to let others at the bottom get their turn. Once the carriage settled, he quickly shifted himself to the other side, popping himself down next to Buck. That better? A bit, he admitted, getting a small scare once the ride started up again. He spent the majority of the time ignoring how far the ground was, getting by focused on the landscape outside the window, which slowly became clearer the higher they got. I ain't seen the UFO, Nate. No? He blinked. Maybe it was a bit too far. The island was a few miles off from the mainland, after all. At least the second option he came up with wasn't a dud. Maybe try looking up instead. Up? And Nate's nod bucked it as he was told, his forehead pressing against the glass so he could peer up at the night sky above them. He'd never seen so many stars in his whole life. It's space, isn't it? Your favourite? Nate grinned, copying his position and pointing to the cosmic atmosphere. Out here, so far away from the illuminated town, with the carnival that only comes a few times a year, barely making a dent in supporting the light pollution. Here, the stars could shine best, without any thick trees blocking the way, any clouds of smoke intoxicating the air. Here, Buck could finally see clearly. And we're really high up, aren't we? Much higher than the watchtower back at the base. Slowly, Nate turned back to him. This is the closest you've gotten to space, I'm sure. Yeah, you're right. Buck mumbled. Then he allowed it, and he was sure it'd be enough to spill the tears. The Ferris wheel was for him. They convinced him to try it because he wanted it to be for him, to give him a chance to see the stars in all their glory, his passion shining best at this very moment. He did focus on that for a while, during the first round of the wheel's gradual spinning. The second time, though, he only had eyes for Nate, the sweet, stupid boy who was too engrossed by the view to even notice, his soft features glowing against the wheel's faint, multicolored lights. How sick he must be to take in that beauty, to have been praying for it to be his for so long, how truly, awfully sick. But now, in that moment, he never wanted to get better. He could physically feel his heart aching once they had to get off. Nate? Nate? The brunette paused, standing only a few feet in front of Buck, turning back to face him with a kind acknowledgement. Subtly, Buck glanced back to the Ferris wheel, his voice a little timid as he asked, "Can we do that again?" Just as Nate suspected, shown by his knowing smile. Toothless. He'd never felt such a thrill in all his life. Nate, where'd you... Within the maze of the haunted house, hiding amongst the colourful padded floors, an assortment of childish decals. Decals or decals? I want to say decals, I think. I don't know how it's actually pronounced, but decals sounds better. Childish decals. Nate found success in taking him by surprise, grabbing Buck's wrist from behind. Boo! Yeah! Buck yelped, his body flipping around to playfully slap Nate's arm. Idiot. Sorry, you make it too easy. Nate's laughs calmed down, but the prominent grin still remained. He made sure not to lose him this time by keeping a hand on his wrist. Come on, there's a mirror maze just down the slide. Ooh, what? It was also new to Buck, so foreign. Yet it all felt right. Even when he get lost in a supposedly haunted house, Nate will repeat the same joke about summoning Yoko's watch over and over again. And even when it got old real fast, he still laughed anyway. Even when Nate trusted him with his money, only for Buck to waste it all in the rigged balloon game, and it took everything he had not to take it out on the poor underpaid worker. Let me try. It was Nate's turn now, digging into his pocket for more change. Just one shot. And one shot was all he needed, tossing arrows at the balloon with sweating focus, hitting the right ones he needed. He didn't even mind that the grand prize, which is a small stuffed toy that they'd probably get from the local Every Mart for less than $5. I wonder if it's the because if you want to run away in Yokai Watch, you use substitute doll thing. Wonder if it's that. It was worth it to smugly rub it into Buck's face, who stood there gawking. It was a plushie that Nate already treasured, squeezing it tightly once the ascent on the roller coaster they had been holding off. Buck had never been on one before, and up until now Nate had been too scared to try. But that only solidified their reason to finally give it a go. They could deal with it together. So, Buck braced himself as they slowly approached the drop. This ain't gonna give me a heart attack or something, right? Nate looked pale for a moment. Did your doctor tell you that? No, nah, just wondering. Buck laughed, grimacing as it sounded more awkward than anything. He knew he would die. He wasn't that stupid. It was just the nerves getting to him, and Nate knew it. I'm here if you need me, you know. He gently reminded him, and to some hesitation he freed one hand from the bar, holding it out so his palm faced the sky. Well, this just reminds me of the time that I've been on roller coasters before, but I was queuing up for this really cool looking one, and then as soon as me and my mate got to the front of the line, and this is after like probably about half an hour or so of waiting. This ride is closed because of some problems or whatever, and it's so annoying. Given how stubborn he already was, Buck pretended to ignore that offer. It failed instantly as soon as they dropped down, the boy screeching before squeezing Nate's hand as tight as he could. And he didn't dare to let go, even after they got off. You alright? Nate asked through a breathless laugh, walking slowly with him as Buck tried to recover from the shock. He was fine, really. Still a little shaky from the adrenaline, but it'll wear off eventually. Yeah, he confirmed with a slightly raised voice. Maybe you don't want to go again, though. That's fair. Nate agreed. He wasn't too keen on the idea either. Looking down, the stuffed toy he had been clutched closely to him the whole time. It was a silly little thing, the fluffy yellow duck, but that didn't make it useless. Okay, so it isn't the retreating doll. I can't remember what it's called uh, in English. I do remember, I think in Japanese, which is called, I guess you translate that as substitute doll, which just reminds me of the substitute doll from Pokemon. But it's not called that in English. Anyway, fluffy yellow duck. I didn't make it useless, no matter how small it was. Here, you keep it. Buck blinked. Suddenly there was a plushie getting pushed against his shirt. Yeah? Keep it. You should have worn it anyway. I was just showing off, he insisted, shoving it closer to him until Buck was practically forced to take it. It was softer than it looked, the redhead running a thumb over the plush. Give it a few days of handling and it already started to wear, he assumed, but that was beside the point. It was a gift. It wasn't technically his. Nate was the one who'd won it. Yet he was still adamant on leaving it to Buck. Just like many other instances, and this time the feeling was no different, Buck feeling mushy. From me? Nate nodded in confirmation, and Buck held the toy closer. It was a little silly, he thought, considering he was nearly 14 years old and his heart was being won by a plushie of all things. But the hopeful look Nate had was enough to ease that bashfulness. Damn his smile. Thanks. No problem, Nate hummed, tearing his gaze away to view the rest of the fair, in search of other rides or attractions they could go to. They'd already done mostly everything. Sure, there were a few more of the intense rides still in need of trying out, but given Buck's red-hot stay after one roller coaster, Nate didn't want to push their luck. Where's Noelle? He wondered, only realizing now that he hadn't seen her ever since they arrived. Without feeling the need to make a big deal of it, Noelle soon returned back to the house, slipping off her trainers and hanging up her jacket. It didn't go unseen, though, both her parents perking their heads up from the living room couch. Nosy? Her mother was the first to call her out. Home already? She would have nothing more to escape to the stairs and head straight to bed, but she knew by now that ignoring them would only make her feel worse. Got bored, she sat up with saying, tugging out the scrunchie that kept her ponytail intact, slumping down beside the couple on the couch. She had an exaggerated face at that fact. The way her father also scrolled through the TV channels in a panic, presumably finding something that was more appropriate for her age, and a snort from her as well. Go on, many rides. He cleared his throat. Her answer was simple enough. Dodgems, she murmured, leaning down till the cheek hit the armrest. Nate was showing Buck the big wheel and stuff. At that, Nadia gave a quick glance to her husband, the two of them equally perplexed. Do you go on as well, honey? She asked. There was a period of quiet before she admitted the truth. Mm-hmm. She shook her head. Did the Dodgems by myself. Then there was this rubber toy I wanted for one of the game thingies. It was rigged, though, obviously. Carefully, Nadia untangled herself from her husband's arm, shifting to hold her daughter instead. Mom. Whoosh. You're getting cuddles whether you like it or not, she smirked, which only widened once Noelle gave in instantly, accepting the cuddles and gentle forehead kisses. Forget about the fair then, alright? You can hang out with us old people instead. Rhoda huffed. You're not that old. No, but we are pushing 40. Definitely old enough to embarrass you, and also old enough to barely have a clue about your modern gadgets and thingamajigs. Tilting her head, she gestured to her husband, who now sat by the TV stand preparing the gaming controllers. You don't have to. Nonsense. Her father quickly shut her up. Maybe you didn't win the games there. We can certainly win against me here. He chuckled, switching on the console. That's more fun, isn't it? All her bad thoughts washed away. Yeah. As the news predicted, the carnival unfortunately had to close early, rain touching down the mainland before swiftly making it to the island. The boat was parked on the way back. With how dark it was, Buck didn't trust Nate enough to let him go home on his own. They didn't talk much after arriving back at North Beach. Nate just softly hummed, keeping a firm grip on the umbrella that shielded them from the incoming rain. Luckily I had this, huh? Oh yeah, you're a real magician. Buck chuckled, eyeing the backpack that Nate kept behind him. What are the tricks you have up your bag? Fresh food? More bandages? Well, I won't call the food fresh. It's mostly snacks and stuff. And the Morse code sheet you gave me. Right. He raised a brow. You have been practicing, haven't you? Obviously. For the secret messages. Nate grinned. Despite the rain that only appeared to get heavier, drenching all the unprepared passers-by, they found it easier to appreciate the peace. It wasn't expected nowadays, especially at night when trouble could be lurking from any corner. He could be lurking. Yet, neither of them had to worry about that anymore. Buck especially. He was battling himself in his head, trying to muster up a single way to show his thanks without sounding strange or off-putting. Because truthfully, to his own surprise, despite all the downs that tried their hardest to plague him, even if he was sick, he'd never felt happier. And there was only one person he could blame for that. Nate. Buck had stopped walking all of a sudden. Nate carried on for a few steps to the process in his mind when Squeaky quickly rushed back to get Buck under the umbrella again. Yeah? He wanted to try it again. The warmth he yearned, that he received only the day prior in desperate times. He didn't want that to be the only time. He wanted it to be natural. Wished for it. Prayed for it. Unsure how to act on it, he recalled how it went yesterday, slowly leaning in to hold Nate in his arms. He reciprocated almost instantly, his free arm wrapping around Buck's waist with a gentle touch. Buck felt the weight of Nate's head resting on his shoulder, the subtle height difference making an easy task without struggle. This felt calmer, like they weren't embracing for their lives, fearing to never get to move again. It was because they wanted to. And selfishly, Buck dreamed it would go on forever. You have no idea what you do to me, he murmured into the brunette's ear, the strawberry aroma for his shampoo clearer than ever. Nate gave a small hum in response, pulling back a little to smile in amusement. What's that supposed to mean? He barely gave himself time to think about what he was doing. His hands left Nate's back, already missing the feeling finding themselves in his cheek instead, cupping the boy's face as if he were a precious treasure. And in a final attempt for his mind to push it all away, Buck slowly tilted his head to the empty streets. East Pine visible just across the road. From there, the church ruins peeked out from the cracks of the buildings, standing in front of it. Trees gathered to hide the remains of the house. At that moment, he didn't care about any of that anymore. His rational instincts were dead. So, with a careful caress of Nate's fringe, Buck pressed a gentle kiss to his forehead. Nate was too stunned to speak, only able to let his eyes flutter shut. He nearly dropped the umbrella as well, their only protection in such a trying time, their shield that could only guard them from the sky. Who's to say they weren't exposed to those superior, to the ones that watched it all, to him? In that silence, the lack of barriers destroyed it all. With a shuddering breath, Buck slowly purred away. Merda! Buck? Nate opened his eyes once more, only to find the redhead's panicking figure. The hell did I... He began to mutter, stepping away from the safety of the umbrella. I'm not And to save himself, he ran for his life. Buck! Nate cried out as soon as his boots started thudding against the pavement, his legs thankfully working in autopilot and carrying him over to start the chase. Where are you going? Buck! He tried calling out louder this time, the two of them barely making it as far as the church before Buck finally stopped to catch his breath. Still, Nate kept his distance, tightening his grip on the umbrella as the rain only intensified. Buck, it's okay. No! He shook his head, hissing out through his heaving. No, it ain't okay. Nothing about this is okay. What are you talking about? I'm serious, it's fine. I mean, I didn't expect that, but I didn't mind it. Shut up! Buck cried out, his eyes darker in the way Nate was clearly frightened. His shoulders clenched, his own face giving Buck that lost look he'd loathed. Why aren't you mad? Mad? What's there to get mad about? I don't know, maybe because this ain't right? He bit back, his hair already completely drenched and drooping without the umbrella. Go on, yell at me, hit me, do something, anything. Why can't you be mad at me? Buck. Nick could barely get the name out, already feeling his throat tighten. Still, he stood his ground. Why should I? Buck, I like... The word never left his mouth. Still, Buck could have guessed it from a mile away. You got any idea how stupid that sounds? His heart plunged into his stomach. I do. Yeah. Nate nodded, his head hung low. I do. Good. Cause if he found out, then... Nate's brows furrowed. Who? Buck just sighed, his hands clenched into fists. Why do you have to be so Slowly, he sank to the ground, hiding his face in his palms. Still, Nate had to get through to him, so stepping closer and crouching down, he placed a gentle hand on Buck's shoulder. But, piss off! Nate got shoved away as soon as Buck felt something grab him, physically. The boy let out a yelp before falling to the floor. I can't go soft like this, okay? Especially not now, and especially not for some guy. And he had no words left in him. He could only stare in horror, the umbrella lying limp beside him. And even when Buck's glare wavered, when that sorrowful look he was given was shattering his heart entirely, he never gave it up. Don't follow me, he ordered, brushing off the dirt from his knees before storming off. What about the secret messages? That alone got Buck to stop. Forget him. That one doesn't matter anymore. He never turned back, no matter how much Nate silently pleaded. Nate was drenched, completely and utterly. He couldn't bring himself to say a word when he got home. His mother would call for him, watching him walk across the hall, the steps barely heard over the game on the TV screen. Noelle noticed, though. Of course she did, and she abandoned the game altogether to see what was up. Nate, she softly called out, fidgeting when the door handle to his room. You're soaked! Finally, he allowed himself to collapse, raspy sobs leaving his mouth and heavy tears streaming down his cheeks, quickly muffled out by his sister's embrace. Nate, hey, what happened? No, don't cry. Noel whispered, keeping a secure grip on him as he shook uncontrollably, his cries echoing throughout the house. It wasn't long before more footsteps rushed up the stairs as well. In Buck's own despair, he himself wished death. No one could see him by the graves at this time of night. Many of East Pines residents claimed the church to be haunted now. It was just how he wanted it to be, wasn't it? Alone. Back to square one. Without anyone to frustrate him, to change him, to drive him utterly insane. Though at this rate, he'd never truly be alone. Not with that nagging voice still killing him inside. This was long overdue. His legs wobbled slightly as he stood upright again, still frazzled by everything that had happened. The trek wasn't long, of course. St. Petersburg was a small town. Not a lot of death goes on here, so not a lot of graves are needed. Even the ones further out could easily be found and hiked to. As he walked, utterly exhausted yet fueled with rage, a lingering feeling he'd endured for far too long, overall he felt numb. He'd have no regrets after this. There wasn't any point. Giovanni and Elizabeth Hazeltine. Even in their death, their headstones stood prosperous while others lined with the scraps. The very names boiled his blood. It was all his fault. Everything was his fault. The OK blaster shook in his hand, the trembling boy cranking the dial up to 5 as opposed to the usual 1. He swore to himself this was what was best. It would allow him to heal. Maybe it'd even drive him away. He could finally be gone for good. The only physical memory of his existence. Without it, he is nothing. On the contrary, Buck had everything. Deep down he knew it. He'd been offered love on a silver platter whilst feasting amongst the raccoons, only to tear it all apart. He knew that he was never frustrated nor changed, as that was always who he was born to be, loving that boy. Because he did love him. He loved him to bits. Maybe in a better life, one free from his chains. He'd believe it to be less sinful to love him than to hate himself. And with that in mind, with hitched breaths and forming tears, he pulled the trigger. For a moment, it all went dark, a high-pitched ringing in his ears as he quickly came to, lying in the grass. It was when he sat up again. The damage had been done, a gaping hole replacing the once prominent headstone. The wilted flowers caught fire in the blast. Wyatt! He'd come to regret it after all, a shadow looming over his tiny, shaking figure. No, wait! I'm sorry! No, please! No! And that is where we end it. Okay, yeah, because that is one hell of a stopping point. Yeah, a lot. That was a lot. That was, as I was expecting it to be from what I've been told about this chapter. And you know what? I'm not even gonna show the summary of the next chapter. We can just end it here, and you'll have to eagerly anticipate the next episode. Oh, I mean, you know, you can always go and read it yourself. But anyway, that's the end of the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed We've got some truly doomed Joey on our hands now. Um, yeah, and also Noelle, I'm a little concerned about her because yeah, she basically kind of felt like she was third wheeling and without a friend to go around with. You know, it's hard to really enjoy yourself, even in a place designed to be fun, by yourself. So yeah, I hope she takes care of herself a bit more. You know, I get why she did it, and yeah, I think uh, that's everything. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.